Hi, hello everybody. I am happy to see you here and welcome to my presentation. Some of you probably know me. It's not the first time I'm presenting here, and as usual, I'm presenting about ancient languages. I've been studying ancient languages, mostly in the European languages now for a couple of years, actually over a decade already. And today I will be talking about Luwian, and actually not about the language, but the writing system and the story of its decipherment. The title of my presentation, Cracking the Code, Decipherment of Anatolian Hieroglyphs, already tells you that the names for the hieroglyphs that are used in the literature are different. So there's the Anatolian hieroglyphs. There's also the name Luwian hieroglyphs, but essentially it refers to the same writing system. I would like to take you on a journey so that we can follow this traveler, this person here carrying an interesting bag and adorned with lovely curls. I would like to take you to follow him and see what he has to tell us about the writing system, how it was deciphered, how it was used, and what kind of inscriptions were written on it. And luckily, we do not have to start from nowhere, because this gentleman, it's actually King Suppiluliuma of the Hittites, he left us a clue. And if you look at the back of the gentleman, he's carrying an inscription. So he actually tells us something about where he's coming from, who he is, and when he lived. So let's take a look. This gentleman was king of a Hittite kingdom, which was composed of very many different ethnicities or different people. Most of them were Indo-Europeans, so they were originally related to the Germanic tribes and the Indo-Iranian tribes and the Balto-Slavic tribes and so on. And they were probably the ones that were the first ones to leave the homeland, the Indo-European homeland. So they split from the rest. They migrated to what is present-day Turkey and northern Syria. And they must have arrived in Anatolia by 2000 BC, but we do not really know exactly how. So it is assumed that the homeland of the Indo-Europeans is north of the Black Sea. And the Luwians, or the Anatolian people, not just the Luwians, but also the Hittites and the Lycians and the Lydians and so on, they left the homeland and ended up on the other side of the Black Sea, around definitely by 2000 BC, because we already have names in inscriptions of other peoples who were living there in Anatolia and in the ancient Near East, around 2000 before Christ, mentioning Luwian and other Anatolian names. The Luwians themselves were part of the Hittite kingdom, and then they formed separate smaller states, and they left lots of inscriptions that were written between 15th and 7th century BC also. So the script was in use for about 8 centuries, and they also left monumental inscriptions with very beautiful artistic scenes like this one, where a god is being displayed on the left. His name we can see here in those two, well, actually it's 4 symbols, and he is positioned here, he's talking here to a king. Both of them are wearing spiky hats, and if we look exactly what's going on the right side, this is a zoom in, there is an inscription running from the top to the bottom, which has 11 lines, and it tells us something about these people. So what is the language of this inscription? All of the inscriptions that came to us in Hieroglyphic Luwian language script, they are called Luwian hieroglyphs because the language of this inscription is Hieroglyphic Luwian. And it is one of the Anatolian languages. All of the Anatolian languages they fell out of use. So Anatolian branch of the Indo-European family is undoubtedly the least well-known one. All of these languages, all of the Anatolian languages were spoken in Anatolia, which is present Turkey, and undoubtedly the best known of them is the Hittite, because we have very many texts in the Hittite language transmitted on cuneiform tablets. And if we look at the genealogy of Anatolian languages, they can be further split into three groups. So we have the Palaic language, which is actually an attested language found also written on clay tablets in the Hittite archive. The Hittite, the major Anatolian language with a huge corpus, a vast number of texts, 10,000s of fragments of clay tablets. And then we have several Luwic languages that were spoken in various parts, mostly in the west and in the south of Anatolia, such as Carian, Lydian, Lycian, Luwian, Pisidian, and Sedetic. And of Luwian itself, we have two dialects. Well, they shouldn't be treated exactly like dialects. It's better to say that we have two varieties of this language. They are very, very similar. However, they were used in different times. So cuneiform Luwian was written prior to first hieroglyphic Luwian inscriptions. So the script is very different. Also, the content of the inscriptions is quite different. And the language, though similar, there are notable differences. And today I will be exclusively talking about hieroglyphic Luwian. So some of the differences, if you would like to know, cuneiform Luwian is more of a Celtic language, religious language, whereas hieroglyphic Luwian was written on monumental inscriptions, on seals. We will see quite a few examples of hieroglyphic Luwian. And cuneiform Luwian was very limited to mostly Celtic content. So where exactly were those inscriptions found? And this map shows you a distribution of inscriptions from two main periods, the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. And the red ones are from the Bronze Age, so they are the earlier inscriptions, and the ones marked in black are the Iron Age inscriptions. And you can see from the distribution that there is a difference. The red ones, the Bronze Age, the early inscriptions are more kind of, they are all scattered around Anatolia, whereas the later Iron Age inscriptions are more grouped and they are more concentrated in the southeast of Turkey and go further south down to North Syria. This map has been taken from a wonderful website called HittiteMonuments.com. I really recommend you to visit this website because you can click on individual locations, and then a new page pops up and you can see pictures and also shorter descriptions about texts about those inscriptions. It's really worth visiting, and most of the photographs in this presentation are also taken from this website. So if you would like to see more inscriptions, just go to HittiteMonuments.com. So here again, you see it's not just the difference in the distribution of inscriptions. There is actually an important breaking point around the 12th century BC, so approximately in the middle of the transmission of the inscriptions. Is this on one hand the transition from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age, which was accompanied by, of course, technological advancement, new tools, new weapons, just general new things, of course, also influenced the culture. And we see that it coincides also this switch between this transition between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age coincides with different political developments in Anatolia. This situation here in the Bronze Age, around 13th century BC, shows the Hittite Empire united at the moment of its farthest extension, and you can see it goes all the way down here where the Hittites were fighting regularly against the Egyptians. One of the famous Battle of Kadesh resulted in the first peace treaty, first world's known peace treaty. So you see the situation is very united. The Hittites are together there with Luwians and Hattians, and various languages were spoken in this kingdom. The situation changes when we look in the Iron Age. There are very many smaller Hittite states. They are called Neo-Hittite states. They were actually Luwian speaking. All the circled red is the Luwian speaking states, and the yellow ones are the Aramean speaking states. So there is a mixture of people going on here. There's multilingualism definitely, and this is also where the script flourished. So let's look at the evolution of the script again with this perspective of the Bronze Age and the Iron Age division. Around sometime before 1600 BC, first symbols appear on objects, on vessels, on also like graffiti, but those are individual signs, and it's possible that it's like a scribal signs or signatures of some kind, but we cannot really talk about writing because not everything people were not able to write everything. Then a little bit later, around this time, seals start appearing, and these seals are a little bit like today's stamps. So they mark ownership. They could be impressed into clay tablets, and the impression that was left marked clearly either it was like a seal of approval, or it was a seal of ownership, or it was a symbol of the king. So these inscriptions, they are quite limited in length. They are usually very short. They are also bilingual, or rather to say, we don't know which languages were used there, because those inscriptions are very short and they consist only of names. So also at this period, the writing system maybe is fully developed, but we do not see it yet. A little bit later, around 1300 BC, we see the script is really fully developed. There are all kinds of signs. I will explain later what kinds of signs there are. And longer inscriptions appear on either natural rock faces or on stone slabs, so on steles. And these are longer texts, dedications, commemorations, historical accounts, and so on. And after that, in the Iron Age, the script was further developed. So certain signs acquired new meanings, some signs lost the old meanings. So there's general evidence for new meanings in the signs. And this period has left us private correspondence, also contracts, records, and there was probably some other daily inscriptions that just didn't survive until today. And around 700 BC, the script ceases to exist, probably because we do not know of any inscriptions after this period of time. So how was the script deciphered? The script was kind of rediscovered after it fell out of disuse in 1822 by travelers, by European scholars and travelers in Anatolia. And the first things discovered were these stones that you can see here. Is a picture of Hammer stones, they are called, and here's an early drawing of these Hammer stones. people noticed these special symbols and saw that they appear to be like hieroglyphs, but they're very different from the Egyptian ones. They look differently. The Hittite connection was established in 1876 when Archibald Sayce looked at the inscriptions, and he even tried to read one of the inscriptions. He noticed that certain symbols were the same as on the as in the temple of the Hittites, and this way he could say that these glyphs are related to the Hittites. Hence also the name in the literature that you sometimes encountered Hittite hieroglyphs, because back in the 19th century, people thought that the language of the inscription was Hittite. The first texts started appearing from 1900, and they were published consecutively in the next year in the first corpus, but people didn't really understand the writing system yet very well. In 1906, the Hittite archive was excavated in Hattusha, and thousands of clay tablets and clay tablet fragments in several Anatolian languages were discovered. In Bogaskale, close to Bogaskale or Hattusha, which was the capital of the Hittite kingdom. And if we zoom in, you can see here was a huge archive near to this village. And here's a satellite picture. So if you go on Google Maps and look at the satellite picture, you can see actually the excavation site. And very, very, very many tablets were unearthed. These Hittite tablets could be fairly easily deciphered. So you see from 1906 till 1912 is not much time. This was due to the fact that the Hittite texts were written in cuneiform script. And cuneiform script was borrowed from Mesopotamia. So they took it from the Akkadian language and they started writing their own Hittite language with this cuneiform script. So linguists could read already the script, they just didn't understand the language. And in 1912, Bedřich Hrozny, a Czech scholar, realized that the language of these Hittite texts was in fact an Indo-European language. And then people started reading inscriptions like this one. This is one of the seals that I was talking about. It is not bilingual, but it has two writing systems on it. You can see on the outer rim of it is the cuneiform writing, and in the middle there is this figure of the king, and hieroglyphic symbols, Luwian symbols on the left and to the right of the king. It is a repetition of the same symbol, so you can see here it's actually a head of a donkey. It repeats here, just mirrored. This sign is symmetrical, it repeats here. This sign is again non-symmetrical, it repeats here, again mirrored, just like this one and this. And actually there is a mistake because the donkey head is not mirrored properly, but well, it should have been mirrored, but never mind. The point is that the gentleman Sayce, who made the first attempt to decipher the seal, made lots of mistakes. He identified actually a few signs correctly, but it was clear that there were some mistakes. And because we cannot talk about language here, because the inscription consists just of the names. You know, if you take my name, Olga, and you write it in a different script, it will be still the same name, more or less. So this inscription doesn't tell us anything about the language of the seal. So what was necessary is a Rosetta Stone, a larger text, a bilingual text, and such a text was found in 1946. It was a bilingual in two languages. It's a longer text, luckily, and you can see here the Phoenician side on one side of the inscription, and on the other side, here it starts, is the Luwian inscription. It's a parallel text that helped linguists decipher lots of signs. And what happened next, in 1973, three different scholars at the time who were specialists in Anatolian languages, Hawkins, Morpurgo Davis, and Neumann, they were asked to prepare a translation of a text, of the same text. And actually they arrived at very similar results. So you could basically say 1973 is the time where the script is more or less deciphered. Lots of meanings of signs were corrected, but not completely deciphered. The corpus of text was published with all those meanings of the signs, and this is a wonderful publication. If you want to do anything with Luwian hieroglyphs, I really heartily can recommend you this corpus. It's a huge book of over 1,000 pages, but it contains all of the up-to-date texts. So until 1999, all of the known texts, and they are transliterated. There is a description provided there. They are translated as well. There are lots of commentaries and further literature suggestions. So this is a really wonderful book. However, in recent years, new inscriptions have been found. So you don't find actually everything in the corpus of David Hawkins. New inscriptions, just like the gentleman, the Suppiluliuma statue, has been actually discovered, I think, in 2012. And every year, I think on average 2 new descriptions are found. Some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, but there are always new texts, and there are always advancements. Not major breakthroughs like at in the middle of the 20th century, but nevertheless, work is still being done. And one of such projects, such scientific projects concerned with the study of hieroglyphs is iClassifier. Actually, it's a bigger project that studies certain kind of signs in Logosyllabic writing systems. So not just the Anatolian hieroglyphs, but also Egyptian hieroglyphs, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, and also Sumerian cuneiform writing, and the Maya script, and also the Chinese oracle script. And I am part now of this project. So together with Anik Payne and Haleli Harrell, my colleagues, I am now working on developing this, or implementing rather, inputting the Anatolian hieroglyphs into iClassifier. And iClassifier is capable of grouping different kinds of signs, and it is able, by employing several algorithms, to display information in a very different way. So humans would not be able to compute that much of input at the same time. So we are hoping to discover a little bit more information about classifiers in Anatolian hieroglyphs. So now you probably wonder, what are classifiers? And that has something to do with the inner workings of the script. So I already mentioned the script is sometimes called Hittite hieroglyphs. I would advise you not to use this designation. It is the old way of calling this writing system. I myself like both Anatolian and Luwian hieroglyphs. This designation would be correct. So those both are absolutely fine. And the script is an indigenous writing system, which is very, very special, because usually civilizations do not develop develop a script of their own out of nothing. What happens, scripts are being borrowed. If we look at the Latin script, it was borrowed from the Etruscans. The Etruscans borrowed the script from the Greeks from the Phoenicians, and we can trace back almost every single letter of the Latin script back to Egyptian hieroglyphs, actually. So this is a very rare case that a script, that the writing system is being developed somewhere. And this is the case with the Anatolian hieroglyphs. It was probably influenced by some other scripts. So if you just look at these two inscriptions, on the left we see an ancient Egyptian inscription, and on the right a Luwian inscription. There are striking similarities. There is this large figure, and there are lines, and of course the pictorial nature of the signs is very similar. But if we also compare linear B inscription here that you can see on the left with the right inscription, the cursive form of the Anatolian hieroglyphs, it might be that the scripts were influenced by each other, but we do not really know much about that. There's another similarity between certain scripts of the ancient Near East, namely the reading direction. How to read those scripts? We employ the technique called boustrophédon. Boustrophédon means as the ox plows, meaning that the ox plows like this, always turning, and not like we read the English script always from left to right, but always alternating the reading direction. And what happens, the Luwians, when they turned the reading direction, they also mirrored the signs. So if we always know where to start, because the non-symmetrical figures that are kind of resembling body parts, they are looking in there, they are facing the reader. So we start reading here on the right, and we read like this, and then we continue from the left, and you can see here the same sign pointing at itself, saying I am. It alternates, and the direction it faces, so you know how to read. And then we read from up to down in kind of columns. And reading is not quite trivial, because it is a logosyllabic writing system, means that there are several types of signs. There are purely phonetic signs that just can be pronounced easily, as they stand for a syllable, or sometimes just one consonant or one vowel. There are logograms, so signs that represent a full concept, a full word. And finally, there are classifiers, which is part of my research project. So the classifiers, their function is a little bit like emojis. They are at times redundant, but they are a pictographic reading aid. So how to actually, how do we transliterate them? This is an important part, because then you will be able, if you know how to transliterate the signs, you will be able to read texts. The phonetic signs are transliterated like this one, so the sign can mean wa or we, depending. You have to interpret that, but it is definitely a syllabic sign. And there are several wa we signs, and this is the sixth most frequent one of them. That's why they underscored 6 here. It can also stand for a concept of earth, so we transliterate that conventionally with capital letters and Latin words. And finally, it can classify things that have to do something with earth. These are written in brackets. So there are several possibilities of spelling. Either we can spell something logographically, we can spell something logosyllabically, we can mix phonetic writing and logographic writing, we can add a classifier on top, or we can write purely phonetically. And all of these writings, all of them are right. All of them are saying exactly the same thing. It says sheep in nominative singular. So this does not tell us anything about the nominative singular. We just see it's the name or the sign for sheep. And then the logosyllabic writing mixes a logogram of a sheep, but this sign sa, it tells us, actually it should be read as s, it tells us that this word is in nominative singular case. There is also a more extended version of this where a syllable of the stem is added to the writing. There's quite a long version where a classifier, so think of it as an emoji of a sheep, that is added here, but the writing is actually spelled out the way it should be. And then the last variant is without the classifier, just the phonetic spelling, which is the closest one to the modern use of phonetic writing systems. Let's look at some inscriptions now. The seals were the first inscriptions, but as I told you before, it is very hard to say what language is actually written here, because most of these inscriptions just contain names and titles. And here you can see an impression of such a seal in clay, so either to mark ownership or to prove the legitimacy of a contract and so on, just like modern stamps. And most of these seals are from the late Bronze Age, so this is an early kind of inscription with two scripts, and again we have cuneiform on the outer rim and hieroglyphs inside, and the symbol of a king here standing on two further figures and holding out his name. And there are some titles being mentioned and so on. So this is a very typical kind of seal. There are also longer inscriptions, and these are absolutely fascinating because they are sometimes on natural rock faces, like this one on some important roads. These are very much more complex inscriptions, so they actually tell us something about the language. And this one is really fascinating because if we look now, it's actually massive. Now you can see here those two gentlemen trying to copy, trying to create something like this, a drawing of an inscription, because of course it's very hard to study script just from the photographs. So back in the day, you would make such drawings, and they would make it easier to study. And you can see here the full inscription in 8 lines, and the last part, actually it's located here on this second part of the rock. It is like a signature, like a modern day signature. So the scribe wrote here so that we now know who was responsible for these beautiful markings. Also very fascinating, there are only 7 examples of such inscriptions, but these are 6 rolled up letters. So this is private correspondence, and they were rolled up and found at the bottom under the floor of one building. Maybe post worker, we don't know. They were excavated in 1905 in Assur, which is not on the map that I showed you previously because it is in Mesopotamia, so it is far away. A mystery how they ended up here, there. But you can also see the inscriptions are divided into 2 registers, and they could be nicely rolled up so that nobody could read them, or so that they could be easily transported. Very, very interesting pieces of writing. So to finish off, I would like to show you how actually the text reading and text works. This is an inscription that we will look at from Karkamish. It was discovered in Karkamish and it is labeled A1B. All of the Luwian inscriptions are labeled with large with capitals and are named by the place name so that you can easily find them online, for example, on this website or in the corpus. Or if you want to study Luwian by yourself, I really recommend you a book from 2010, Hieroglyphic Luwian by Annick Payne, my colleague, who has done a wonderful job because this is a grammar, a word list, and example of several inscriptions all in one fairly compact book, comprehensive and yet easy to understand. Let us look at one of such inscriptions from her book. So this inscription typically starts with the sign I, which is transliterated as ego. So this is a logogram, a symbol that stands for concept. And this is the start of the inscription, and then we continue reading. We start on the right, and then we proceed vertically in this line further to the left, and then we continue from left to right. As you can see, the feet are here turned to face you, and so on and so on. And here again the faces look to face you from the right to left. Here the donkey, and so on. So how to read? We have ego, I, me is this sign with 4 vertical lines, and E is the sign underneath the me. So a me or I am. Then we have another logogram with a phonetic bit that indicates nominative singular, just as we had in our example with the sheep. And we continue reading. So if you follow me, e, logograph for bonus, then we have the foot, t, and we have this foot in the next line a couple of times that you can also see in the third line here of the text. So we have sa for nominative singular. Then we have a little mark that kind of tells you, it's a classifier. It tells you that the next thing that will be written is a person, is the name of the person. And in fact, this person is Su, he, si written here. It's probably it is the husband of the person who the inscription is dedicated to. So if we read the translation, I am bonus tis, we don't know exactly the name of the person who the inscription is dedicated to, but we know it was the dear wife of the country lord Suhis. So Suhis, this is the name that is written in the upper line. And so it goes on. You can take your time to try to decipher those things and to discover the similarities between the signs, because quite a few signs are actually repeating in this inscription. And that is it for now. I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, I would be very happy to answer them. You can write me an email. Please do reach out. If you're also interested in finding more about this writing system, do not hesitate. And thank you once again, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions. The question number 1, can I somehow buy the corpus book without having to pay the 2,000 that it's priced at on Amazon? Yes, I thank you for this question. I am with you. I would also like to have the corpus. I do not have a hard copy of the corpus myself, but there are scanned copies of the corpus. I'm not sure if you're aware of these. There are available, and if you're interested in procuring one, you're I'd be happy to tell you how to do that. You can just write me an email and I will let you know how to find a PDF copy of such a corpus. I'm not aware of any possibility of buying a corpus for less than 2,000 euros. If anyone of you should know of such a possibility, please do let me know. I would be certainly also interested in buying, and I know quite a few people who would be also interested in buying the corpus for affordable sum of money. Thank you. Next question. Is there still some support in the historical linguistic community for the Anatolia hypothesis of Indo-European origin? This is a wonderful question that maybe requires a little bit of introduction for certain other people in the audience. So the Anatolian hypothesis is a theory that was formulated after the discovery of the Anatolian languages of the Hittite text. And the problem was, when these were discovered, there was already an existing theory about how languages are related to each other within the Proto-Indo-European family. And then Hittite came up and kind of messed up the situation a little bit, because certain grammatical features, most notably the verbs, the verbal system in Anatolian is very simple compared to a rather complex system of the Indo-European, of the other Indo-European languages, with various tenses and various constructions, and this is all missing from Anatolian. So some of the Indo-Europeanists proposed that that these languages are somehow more proto languages than the Indo-European itself, and maybe split up earlier. The discussion is still ongoing, though there is no such hype as there was at the beginning, but you hear from time to time people talking, and the new computational methods of building of deciding when the language is split and how they should be grouped into subgroups, like the Anatolian subgroup and the Indo-Iranian subgroup and so on. The Anatolian hypothesis is still being considered as a valid thing to study when, for example, employing computational methods. So yes, I wouldn't say it's strong support for that, but people still consider it. Next question. How do researchers proceed when trying to find out how hieroglyphs were pronounced, and how sure are we that this pronunciation is correct? Wonderful question, something that I've missed completely. So I made this connection with the Hittite, the Hittites in general, the Hittite language, and especially the Hittite archive that was discovered, and decipherment of the Hittite language. So that aided significantly in the decipherment of the hieroglyphs, because the language Hittite and Luwian are very closely related. B, there is this second variety of the Luwian language, the cuneiform language. And what scholars did, they compared the words and did an etymological analysis. So that's how you arrive at the value, the phonetic value of the signs. And it is now pretty certain. If you would say, if you would ask, is there still work to do to decipher values? There is still a little bit, but most of the values are pretty certainly correct. And you decide them from names, from comparison with other languages, mostly related languages. But for some words, of course, we do not know how to read them, how to pronounce them. This is especially true for logograms that either occur just once or occur in such places where we do not have a clue as to what is the actual underlying word. Thank you for that question. That was a very good one. I don't know. Do we have another question? I see another question. Labas Olga, Labas Andro. Um, do you have any recommendations for books on other types of hieroglyphs like Egyptian or Mayan? Labai Achu. Books for other types of hieroglyphs exist. There are lots. Andro, I should say I will just recommend you a few for studying Egyptian. I'm not sure which languages you read, but for Egyptian, there's quite a bit in German and in French as well. For Mayan hieroglyphs, there's of course something in Spanish. I do know you read Spanish, so I can just send you a list, and if anybody else is interested in receiving such a list, I'd be also happy to share that one with you. Just write me an email. And the last question, if the time allows me, is there active fieldwork searching for new inscriptions? I know there are some scholars who kind of travel around and hope to discover something new, also who go to sites to make pictures of the inscriptions. I am not aware of any current research projects that are aimed at really discovering new inscriptions. Most of the inscriptions that pop up are discovered by some farmers or some locals who notice some markings, and then they contact local museums. The biggest problem is that most of the inscriptions are found in northern Syria, in southeast Turkey. Those geographical areas are unfortunately located where also armed conflicts are located, or also this recent earthquake disaster happened exactly where inscriptions are. I'm not aware of the fieldwork projects, but the hope is always there that any day a new inscription will pop up and hopefully will not be destroyed neither by the wars nor by the climate disasters. So, of course, anytime a new inscription makes a scholar happy, and there are still some being found, so this is good news. I thank you very much for your questions once again, and goodbye.